We've all had those teachers, right? The one that made learning feel like this incredible adventure, and, well, the ones that didn't. But what's the real difference? What separates a teacher who's really struggling from one who's just crushing it? Is it some kind of magic talent, or is it a skill you can actually learn? Let's dig into the science behind what makes great teaching tick.
It's the big question, isn't it? Is it just about knowing your subject, like, inside and out? Is it about being a super warm and caring person? Or is there something else, a hidden skill that can literally transform a classroom? To figure this out, let's dive into a story. It's a classic tale of two teachers. This really highlights a problem that so many educators face, but we're going to see it from two totally different angles. Let's meet Ellen and Leah.
So first up, meet Ellen. She's a new third-grade teacher, she's full of passion, and she's trying to teach her kids creative writing, and, well, it is an absolute train wreck.
I mean, her students are writing next to nothing, and when they do manage to get a few words down, the work is just flat. It's full of mistakes. There's this one kid whose entire essay on my summer vacation was just a single sentence. So Ellen's starting to think, you know what, maybe these kids just aren't ready for this yet.
But then she takes a peek into the classroom right next door. It's her colleague Leah Washington's class, and the difference is just night and day. I mean, Leah's students are the same age, they're from the same school, but they are cranking out pages of these amazing, creative stories. Her classroom is buzzing with energy, while Ellen's is just quiet and totally disengaged. What on earth is Leah doing differently?
Ellen is dying to know Leah's secret. She figures it has to be some kind of special curriculum she bought, or maybe Leah just has this natural gift. But what she finds out isn't magic at all. It's the science of teaching, a powerful discipline that, turns out, anyone can learn.
So when Ellen finally asks her, Leah's answer is kinda shocking. It's not a special workshop. It's not a magic book. She just says, if you think about it, everything I'm doing is just basic educational psychology. Ellen is floored. She remembers getting an A in that class in college, but she never, ever saw how it was supposed to connect to the real, messy world of her own classroom.
So what is educational psychology anyway? Well, at its core, it's the scientific study of learners, how they learn and how we teach. The best way to think about it isn't as some abstract theory, but more like a practical toolkit. It's what you use to solve the real day-to-day problems that pop up in the classroom.
And Leah was using this toolkit in really specific ways. She didn't just tell her kids to write, she motivated them. She sparked their curiosity by letting them pick topics they were actually excited about. She used cooperative learning, getting students to work in groups and critique each other's work. That's a classic psychological technique. Every single thing she did was grounded in a proven principle of how people learn.
Okay, so knowing the principles is one thing, but consistently applying them, that's what separates the good from the truly great. And that takes a very specific mindset, the mindset of what we call an intentional teacher. This is the person who builds the bridge from theory to actual practice.
Intentionality. That's the secret sauce. It just means that everything you do in the classroom, you do for a reason, on purpose. You're not just handing out a coloring sheet to fill the last 10 minutes. You're constantly asking yourself, how does this specific activity move my students closer to the learning goal?
And holding all this up is something called teacher efficacy. This is a huge one. It's the rock-solid belief that what you do as a teacher makes the difference. It's the opposite of blaming the kids or their home life. It's this deep-down belief that you, the teacher, have the power to help every student succeed.
So how does this all come together? Look, becoming an intentional teacher isn't magic. It's a deliberate practice. It all starts with really knowing your students and knowing your subject. Then you start applying what the research says, you reflect on how it's going, and you make every decision with a clear goal in mind.
And that brings us to your professional toolkit, research. Research is a teacher's superpower, and it's not about memorizing a bunch of studies. It's about understanding the methods, like knowing that an experiment can tell you if a new teaching strategy actually causes better results, or that a correlational study can show you a link between, say, student attendance and grades. This knowledge gives you a framework for making smart choices in the heat of the moment.
All right, let's play this out with a classic classroom moment. A student, let's call him Tom, folds up a paper airplane and sends it flying across the room. The whole class erupts in laughter. Okay, what do? Your gut reaction here actually says a lot about your own theories of how kids work. You've got a bunch of options, right? You could reprimand him.
That's based on the theory that punishment works. You could totally ignore him, which is based on the idea that if you take away the attention, the behavior will stop. You could send him to the office or even make it a class issue. See, each action is backed by a different psychological principle.
So here's the absolute key. Educational psychology research doesn't give you one single right answer, no way. Instead, it gives you the tools to analyze the situation. Why did Tom throw the airplane? Is he bored? Is he trying to get your attention? Or is he trying to get his friend's attention? Understanding the why is what helps you pick the strategy that's actually going to work for this kid in this moment.
All right, let's wrap this all up. We've seen that educational psychology isn't just some boring course you have to take in college. When you really get it, it's the foundation. It's the concrete slab you build your entire teaching practice on. And here's the most empowering part of this whole thing. Great teaching is not an accident. It's not a personality trait. It is a skill. And that means it can be learned, it can be practiced, and it can be mastered. Leah wasn't a magician. She was a skilled professional, and she was applying the principles of her craft. And becoming an expert isn't some finish line you cross. It's a process. The teachers who get better and better every single year are the ones who are constantly learning, the ones who look at their own teaching with a critical eye and are always searching for better ways to reach every single student.
So I'm going to leave you with a question. Think about the next time you're in a classroom or a meeting or even just explaining something to a friend. What is one small thing you can do on purpose, intentionally, to make that moment more effective?